Welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood. Please like and subscribe and share this video to all your friends. And Ryan, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're on the same. We're on some group DM or message or something like that on Twitter. And then because I did the People's Party convention, which you're heavily involved in, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Then I've looked at your tweets and I love them. They're fantastic. They're fantastic.
I have a few things to say, you know. We all do in this moment. I mean, look at what's happening. It's crazy. You know, it's like there's not a moment to breathe, you know, like the election's over and now we're right back into the pandemic, you know, and it's worse than ever. It's help didn't really show up, right?
It's insane. Oh, here we got a super chat from Jimmy Dore. Can Ryan and you talk about your core workout? Yeah, we're going to do workout tips, Jimmy. This is Jimmy Dore asking us for workout.
Hey, Jimmy.
What's up, dude? Yeah, we're going to, that's why I want to have Ryan on. Just we're going to talk about supplements and workouts and vegan protein powders and whatever else. So Ryan, I wanted to, you know, I don't even know where to begin because it's so insane. So for me, I was like, oh, good, Trump lost. But now, oh, this is horrible. We've got Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And it feels like, I mean, clearly the Democratic Party has said, and by getting John Kasich into Biden's cabinet, they really hate progressives. The Democratic Party has been made of it. We hate progressives. That leaked CIA Democrat was like, I don't want to ever hear the word socialist, you know, despite the fact that Medicare or $15 an hour minimum wage passed in Florida overwhelmingly. Mississippi has marijuana, you know, like all of these things happen. Where do you see this right now? Because, you know, the Trumpers don't want to listen to facts, but then the vote any blue will do crowd, you know, you tell them all the awful things Obama and Biden did, and they're like, I don't want to hear it. Like, yeah. And they honestly think we're going to pull Joe Biden to the left, which
is not going to happen.
Ever.
Yeah, you can't pull Wall Street to the left. So how are you going to pull Joe Biden, who's owned by Wall Street, to the left? No, look, I wanted to breathe a sigh of relief when, you know, Trump was defeated. But, you know, look who showed up, you know, and we know who Joe Biden is. Like these corporate Democrats, they want to, you know, punch left, govern for their corporate donors, feed the people empty platitudes, and basically take us back to business as usual, you know, take us back to, you know, 2016, to the Obama administration, which is the very conditions that created Trump and led to Trump in the first place. So it feels like we're stuck in this vicious cycle, right, that goes back and forth, you know, every 4 to 8 years from, you know, kind of neoliberal corporate extremism to, you know, right-wing fascism. And that's just not the kind of politics that's going to heal this nation or move this nation forward. Like you kind of alluded to, look, right after the election, what did the corporatists and the Democratic Party do? They tried to blame the progressives, right? They always punch left. That's their default. And what's interesting about that is that there's actually no facts to back up what they were saying.
None,
you know, the progressives who ran in close races on Medicare for all won their races. The more corporatist Democrats who ran, you know, status quo campaigns didn't really stand for anything except, you know, we're not Trump, we're not Republicans. That's kind of the whole corporatist message. And what happened? Those are the ones who lost their seat. And so when Spamberger came out and said, you know, we can't run on socialism, which is laughable because none of the Democrats are running on socialism to begin with, right? I mean, let's be clear about that. If they're running on socialism, we're talking about taking the means of production from the ruling class and putting it into the hands of the working class, which would be fantastic. But this is what they do because their goal, the Democratic Party, is a lie. Like they are not for the people. You know, a lot of liberals, I used to be a liberal. I am a recovering liberal. I fell for the platitudes for like 10 years, 12 years. I fell for the hope and change platitudes. I'll admit it. Yeah. And they sedate the public with platitudes and then turn around and govern for Wall Street and, you know, giant corporations and the ruling class. You know, they're basically like Republicans with better platitudes, you know, maybe a little less racist. But their policies still really hurt, you know, working class, poor, and communities of color. So I just feel like we're in this stalemate until the people wake up and realize that, like, Trump, you know, we got rid of the corrupt president, but we still have the corrupt system, right? And that was always the problem. Trump was always a symptom of our corrupt system. And until we break the stranglehold that, you know, Wall Street and giant corporations and the ruling class have on both corporate parties, nothing will fundamentally change, like Joe Biden told those rich donors. And that's really the truth of it. You know, that is really where we kind of are in this country. And it's depressing, but it just is what it is. You know, look at what happened with when the pandemic hit back in February and March. Like, we didn't go on a full lockdown like we should have. And then what did both corporate parties do? They did what they do best. They bailed out their corporate donors. You know, they passed what was it called? The CARES Act. Had a lot of care for the billionaire class and didn't have a lot of care for the working class. And so in this pandemic, we've seen, you know, the billionaires make, what is it? Like, they've increased their wealth by $1 trillion now, while we're all kind of struggling to keep our heads above water. And so this is just the nature of the game. The system is rigged. And, you know, until we get politicians in Congress who actually want to write laws and legislate for the working class and legislate for the people, we're stuck with these corporatists who just legislate for their donors, their corporate donors, and then feed the people platitudes. And there's a lot of liberals who are comfortable enough to kind of, you know, fall for it. You know, look, if you're comfortable and you got a little money in the bank and you have healthcare, right, you hear all these hope and change platitudes, maybe it works for you, but it's not working for the majority of the country. You know, we got 140 million Americans now who are poor or low income. And I think like 90 million Americans who are underinsured or uninsured. So like, we've got massive problems, and government just wants to continue funneling money up to Wall Street and their donors. And so until we break that, I feel like nothing's going to change.
Yeah, it's so funny to me because, you know, seeing the celebration in the streets on Saturday, part of me understood it. I was like, okay, it's just been a really rough year. You can't go to a concert. You can't go to the movies. You can't go to a comedy show. You can't have fun of any sort of big group fun. And people wanted some kind of win, some kind of celebratory. I got that aspect of it. And just being like, okay, you know, the ding dong, the witch is dead. We got the evil fascist out. But then being like, Biden and Kamala, they're going to do it. That was mind-boggling to me. And I was sort of feeling like I was losing all hope until those protests the day after, where they were like, fuck Biden, fuck Trump, both of them don't care about you. That was like, oh, okay. Ooh, all right. There are some people that are like, you know, and it started in Detroit. It was mainly, you know, people of color protesting and saying how both of them are awful. And that's good. Younger people waking up to that fact. Right. Because we are up against such a powerful, the propaganda, you know, the platitude machine, and you've talked about, and like you say, liberals, I mean, college educated liberals that have decent jobs with healthcare and some money in the bank and a 401k, ultimately they don't care. They're not, right. They wanted to go back to normal. They want to go back to the Obama years when they can go to brunch for 8 years and think everything's fine. They don't care about Yemen. They don't care about $15 an hour minimum wage because they don't need it. You know, and all they care. That's why the only thing that matters to them is this sort of the platitudes. And they're like, oh, you know, right. They put a rainbow flag on the drone. So there's progress. We got progress, you know, and right. And that's what keeps my 1 foot solely anchored in the cynicism that this country doesn't want to learn. I am not excusing the ruling class that does this, that pushes. They have a very powerful propaganda machine. But when you say this to liberals, hey, Obama dropped more bombs than Bush. Hey, you don't like the cages that are separating families? Well, Obama built them. He deported 3 million people. And he did that with Joe Biden as his VP and Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. And, you know, like, they don't care. They just, that's when they don't want to hear it. Just like the Trump supporter doesn't want to hear the facts on why Trump's bad. They just don't want to hear it. And I don't know how we get past this. It's this tribal sort of team mentality. Like, well, my right. Team's fine. So, hey, I'm an Astros fan. I'm okay that they cheated. And that the Astros fan goes, oh, everybody cheats in Major League Baseball. It's like, no, you're ruining the sanctity of the game. I'm just using sports as an example because that's how everybody acts with their politicians. That's my team. Yep. So if you're critical of my politician, then I take it personally and get mad at you rather than go, wow, this is a politician.
Like, until we have a party and we have, you know, representatives in Congress that actually want to serve the people like they're supposed to, it's, you know, the people aren't winning these elections. You know, special interests and, you know, big pharma and the giant insurance companies, you know, the defense industry, you know, that is why they spend so much money. And also, like, that is why they, you know, they're those investors who hedge their bets. You know, the billionaire class in these corporations, they give about half their money to Democrats and they give about half to Republicans. So, you know, it doesn't matter who wins the election because they're invested in both parties. So no matter who wins, the corporations and the oligarchs win. And that's what happened, you know, in just this past election. You know, when they talk about, you know, Democrats vote blue to save America, you know, and then, but then on the other side, you know, the Trump supporters were convinced that, like, their team, the red team, is also convinced that, like, they had to elect Trump to save America. Like, and I think what's interesting to me is both, you know, both corporate parties feed their, you know, they feed their, you know, their members so much fear and propaganda to control them. You know, and what they're not doing is they're not actually feeding us policies that are going to improve our lives. Nope. You know, so they kind of, it's like this whole bait and switch. And watching Trump, like, not accept the result of the election, it reminds me a little bit of what Hillary did. I'll be honest. Like, you know, how it was like she blamed everyone else but herself after in 2016. It was Russia. It was Jill Stein. It was the Green Party. It was Bernie. It was the left. It was progressives. And what happens is, when they crafted this whole narrative that it was everyone else's fault but Hillary. So there was, like, no honest reflection of the party, of the DNC, of the fact that, like, Hillary didn't have a real agenda for working class people. You know, she ran a very kind of anti-Trump campaign herself. And same thing now with what Trump's doing. He's basically, you know, telling his base that, you know, it was all voter fraud. And so they do that. So, like, he's basically, they're keeping the base compliant. They're keeping the base obedient. They're keeping the base from waking up and demanding better, you know, from their party. And both sides do it. That's why we're in this corporate duopoly, and they're masters at it, you know. And so then you add in the corporate media element, you know, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, they're never talking about real shit.
No.
You know, they're talking about, oh my God, Pelosi ripped up Trump's speech. You know, oh my goodness, can you believe what Trump said today? Like, can you believe what he tweeted? Like, nobody gives a shit. Like, where's Medicare for all? You know, so that's what the ruling class does. They kind of, you know, they talk about these frivolous things and keep us all distracted, keep us at each other's throats. So we're fighting. And so we're not realizing that they're picking our pockets and that, you know, our tax dollars are going to endless wars and mass incarceration. And, you know, and it's been like this for a long time. And I think when you wake up and you see how corrupt our system is, and I've just woken up to it in the last 2 years. And, you know, so my eyes are like this, you know, I've just started to get radicalized, you know, and even I voted for Bernie in 2016, but even after that, like, I went back to sleep after that, after the primary. Like, I was a good little obedient Democrat, you know, and I voted for Hillary in the general, you know, because I hadn't really woken up yet. This cycle, like, fuck no, I did not vote for Joe Biden. I did not support Joe Biden. Like, I couldn't, you know, like, because I see through it. And, so here we are, you know, here we are. And I think the silver lining is that if someone like me, who was like a Democratic loyalist for most of my life, if I can wake up, then other people can wake up too. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's my question, because, like you saying, you know, look, I voted I voted third party throughout my life, but for the most part, it's I would vote either Democrat or third party. And, like, I voted third party in 1996 because Clinton, I was like, but, you know, I voted for Gore in 2000 and I fell for the John Kerry in 2004 because George Bush is so awful. We got to just get anyone in there. I heard, you know, the same. So when I heard it again this time, I was like, oh God, I thought Obama might be, you know, like he was going to be Mr. Hope and Change. He was going to be FDR. And then when I lost my house, thanks to the banks that Obama gave money to, and he let them steal my house and didn't prosecute anybody, and, you know, and saw the drones, the bombs and everything. Then I was done. And then I voted for Bernie in 2016 and Jill Stein in 2016, and just laughed as I was blamed, because I was like, yeah, you're right. It was me, Putin, Jill Stein, and Susan Sarandon arm locked around Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, preventing Hillary's motorcade from campaigning there. Yes, that was our fault. Absolutely. And I just saw the insanity, and I've been doing this show for 3.5 years. And in that time, I have seen the Democratic establishment make zero changes. They were playing the Russia card the week leading up to the election, or 2 weeks, even several weeks in the event that Biden lost.
Yeah.
In the event that somehow there was this, this silent majority of Trump supporters that just they were playing that card, and then all when Biden wins. So suddenly, I guess Russia couldn't figure out how to hack this election.
Yeah. Oh, they don't even talk about Russia anymore. It's like, because that was the narrative that worked already. And, no, it's true. It's,
here's my question though. This is my question I want to ask you, because you woke up, I've woken up, others have woken up, but then I see the numbers, the dancing in the street, and then we're going to pull Biden to the left, and people still believing the same bullshit. How do we do this? Because you cannot reform the Democratic Party from within. You just can't. I mean, I've already seen. I mean, I think Bernie sold us out. Tulsi, AOC, they're already acquiescing. They won't call out the crimes of the Democratic Party anymore. They'll just say Republicans bad. Even AOC just put out a tweet like a day ago saying, oh, look at all these awful Republicans that won't stand up to Trump, which, okay, there's some validity in that, but no mention of the Republicans that Joe Biden is just going to rubber stamp into his cabinet. No bringing that up. So how do we, or do we just bail on the dumb fucking liberals and start going for working class people in the 100, whatever, the 96 million people that didn't vote? Like, do we just go? What do you think of that? What do you think we should do?
I think we need a two-tiered strategy. I think that, I think we have to, in some ways, when they did, like this week, for instance, AOC did call out and take on the entire Democratic establishment. She spoke to the New York Times. And, basically she said, we're not the enemy. Black Lives Matter is not the enemy. Medicare for all is not the enemy. I am not the enemy. Stop treating your progressive base like the enemy. I would like to see her do more of that. And when she does stuff like that, I think we have to, great job, AOC. I mean, that's the kind of strong, bold resistance we need to see against these corporatists. But I am of the belief that we cannot give these corporatists 1 inch. We cannot back down anymore. That's why I didn't support Joe Biden. That's why I wouldn't endorse Joe Biden. I asked their campaign to make some concessions. A group of us did. They refused. So and so we have to be clear. So there are some progressives who think that you can change the Democratic Party from within. I actually don't believe you can. Like I said earlier, that's like saying you can move Wall Street left, or saying you can move the billionaire class left, or saying you can move giant corporations left, because those powerful special interests own the Democratic Party. So we know we can't move them left. So how are you going to move the party left? However, there's not enough of us for the progressives who believe in the strategy of trying to change it from within. I have friends in DSA. I support DSA Justice Democrats. They're convinced that they can change it. I believe that we need to build power for the progressive movement outside of these corporate parties, which is why I got involved with the Movement for People's Party. I just do not believe that a party, the Democrats took more money this cycle from Wall Street than Republicans did. Like the Democrats are, a third of Joe Biden's transition team is pro-war. There was like an article out yesterday that, a third of them, have supported, or come from think tanks that are pro-war. So it's like, we know what we're going up against. But I will say this, it is very important as we work to build power outside of the party to look. I don't believe in worshiping anyone. I don't believe like AOC is a politician. The squad are politicians. They criticize them when they need to be criticized. But when they do something good, like this week, when she's fought back against the establishment in very, aggressive words, I think we need to encourage that. And here's why. If we start fighting, if the people who think we need to play the inside game start fighting with us who are playing the outside game, then the corporatists win. Because if you start dividing progressives and progressives start going after each other, there's already way more corporatists. 90% of the Democratic Party are corporate Democrats. I'd say less than 10 of them are actual progressives, maybe 10, right? So we know the party's not a progressive party. We know it's a corporatist party, but the public doesn't. And so what we need is to continue to build power outside of the party. So when we, win an election in 2022, hopefully a congressional election, and I know we're planning to run a candidate in 2024, but the point is to not start keep the fire at the corporatists. So the goal would be is once the party gets formed, the progressives will come over with us, the few we have, right? When we finally have a party, when we win a few congressional races, hopefully in 2022. That's my thing, is that I support both strategies. I'm a believer in the outside strategy, that we got to build power on the outside to really pressure these corporatists. But I don't think we're going to get very far if we're all fighting with progressives when we should keep our fire on the corporatists.
That's a valid point. That's a valid point. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please hit the like button, the subscribe button. Go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood and rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, where you can support the show. Also, I have a Bitcoin wallet, a Bitcoin Cash wallet, and an Ethereum wallet in the show notes. We're taking cryptocurrency. I have a Coinbase affiliation link. We're going to be getting on some other exchanges. So that's how you support the show. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. YouTube is unsubscribing us at an alarming rate. I have a PayPal button at grahamelwood.com. I even have a Venmo at Graham-Elwood. There's a lot of ways to support our show. We are getting crushed by YouTube. We've dipped under 73,000 subscribers because of YouTube. Thanks for supporting what we do.